Hello. Welcome to another episode of Naked Hearts with Heart Activation. I am Elaine, and I am the face behind all of this. And I am also the one who is starting off leading the way with with sharing my human experience and being the way shower of the strength through vulnerability and allowing ourselves to be seen through all of the humanness and all of the spectrums of both. Well, not just this whole spectrum of life, just everything. See, it's so fascinating, and this is why I'm I am allowing myself to be completely unedited, because when I try to have a script of sorts, it just feels super unnatural to me. And I feel that I free flow and allow a space of authentic flow, and allowing spirit to work through me and to be a clear channel for the messages that need to come through, and allowing myself to be a tool for others. Whatever messages need to come through will come through, and trusting that, because really the ego mind really is so focused on having this whole set and having it all arranged in a certain way. And if things don't go a certain way, we feel that other people won't look at us as credible, or as somebody who has something to offer us, or that it is, we're afraid that we might be judged, because if we don't follow a script, or if it doesn't come out in a certain way, that we're afraid we're going to look stupid. And it's this untrusting of allowing the spirit to flow through you, which is not, it's not everybody's path to be super free flowing. And it's not everybody has the throat chakra that is meant to heal through their voice, or to be able to. Some people are meant to be organized speakers. I feel I just am not. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. I work best like this. So for now. So as I am going to be hyper aware of where my microphone is and that the green dot is on. Because yesterday, I'm having technical difficulties. Actually, it's totally me. It's user difficulties. So I just need to be more aware that this is charged and it's on, and I've recorded it and all of these things. Okay, so this will be the second time recording this one too, which is totally beautiful. And interesting space that I'm in today versus when I recorded the other one yesterday. Okay, so looking back into the last episode, the last chapter, the one thing that I have found going into this chapter, and I'm thinking I can wrap it up. I'm thinking I can wrap it up in this. And if not, like my fear, one of the fears is that people don't tune in for the whole thing, and because it's too long. And honestly, let's work on breaking away from that. Let's work on being more mindful in our space and allowing a slowness about us, because we have been in a society, more so in American society, where everything is go, 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 and you're not worthy if you're not producing, or you're not able to actually slow your mind down, and therefore it's more complicated, or it's not worth your time if it's too long. And it really invites us to question why we want things to be faster and to be more to the point. Because if we look at that, it is going along with, like, yes, some things are painstakingly difficult to get through. However, if we look at the whole thought process behind it, it is very connected to how we do not value the journey as being the process and the goal. The journey, like me being open and vulnerable, is part of, it's everything. It is not only about the finished product. And can you sum that up in 15 minutes? Like, I've got stuff to do and my attention span isn't that long. And, sure, it is. And can you also, like, I invite you to question and explore why it's difficult for somebody to grasp your attention for that long, or not even grasp your attention, but why it would be irritating to have such a long thing. And I'm thinking of Aubrey Marcus, who is a very powerful masculine podcaster. If you haven't heard of him, please go check him out, because he definitely opened up my eyes to a few certain things. And one of them is being like, he's got a long podcast. Some of them are like 2 hours long, and they're still super powerful. Like, you can always just pick it back up. Like, you can do your shit and also listen and also pick it back up. So with that being said, I do that was part of my fear. Like, are people going to listen? Are people actually going to, like, listen to the whole thing? And am I just going to bore people? Like, how am I keeping people captivated? And I guess, to be honest, like, if I am not your person, or we aren't at that same frequency, then it's not going to work. And I trust that all the right people will hear the message. And then, so I just show up and I just am present, and I am allow the vulnerability and spirit to speak through me, and here I go, and here I am. So now, yesterday, as I was recording this one, that didn't make it. Let's see. Okay. I was really, and today I feel a little bit more calm about it. So maybe this is why yesterday's just didn't work. This sector of my life is where I felt a huge fuck up. Like, it was a lot easier for me to talk about the other things, because I felt that was like, oh, where, like, it wasn't a lot of there was one part of my life where a lot of these things happened for me, and then there's this other part of my life, which we're getting into, where I then became the opposite and started doing the things to other people. So it's a difficult one for me to own, that I hurt and stole from a lot of people, and I cheated a lot of people, and I cheated on a lot of people. I used people, I manipulated, I straight up just didn't care. I wanted to care, but I wasn't in a space to do so. And yeah, so after I had my daughter, I basically, like I had said earlier, went through this whole postpartum psychosis. Yeah. in that time of, I mean, in that time after my daughter was born, of stealing, well, let's see, I stole my mom's medication. She had pain pills and also some other like ADD medication. And then also, I mean, I broke into her safe, I broke into her office, I broke into her, like things I thought I would never do. I totally did. Things that I thought I would not, things that I had always said, well, that's not me. Like, I didn't do that. I can't believe that person did that. In the 12 steps in Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous, uh, bef- before my daughter, there's like before my daughter was born and after my daughter was born, because this is where the whole pendulum switched. And oh God, I'm so grateful for that, because I was seriously one set mind, totally closed minded. And I couldn't, it was very difficult for me to put myself in other people's shoes. So people that kept on like using in recovery and using and like coming back, or couldn't stay out of drugs and alcohol, I was super judgy, like, well, they can't stay clean. Like, what is wrong with them? Like, what the hell? Like, if I can do it, you can do it. If I've done it, like, you can do it. And just really um, very judgy, very judgy. So despite being like not under the influence of substances, I probably, at that time in my life, I had built up so many walls because, and I also felt I didn't like humans either. Like, I wasn't a people person, but yet I was still like a hairstylist. So it, it didn't, it didn't make sense. Like, I felt like I knew I knew that I had this great gift within me that I could help others, but yet I wasn't there. I wasn't in a space to do that. I was inspired by many people who would be completely vulnerable and just share their shit, and also didn't feel I had that strength yet either. So once I started using after my daughter was born, I mean, things went really bad pretty fast. And their father, had asked me to go get clean, and I lied. Basically, I lied for years, for the first like 3 years, and said that I was getting clean. And then I would go to meetings and lie at meetings, and then say I was clean so I wouldn't get my kids taken away, or I wouldn't get kicked out of the house, and all these things. Whatever I did, it was because I was afraid of the consequences. So really, I didn't do it because I didn't want I didn't want to be free of substances. I wanted to not have consequences. I wanted my cake and I wanted to eat it too, basically. And within those several years of lying, so it was like we got a house in our area. We had this beautiful house. We had, the son, the daughter, and then I had this handsome fiance who was going back to school and blah, blah, blah. It was like the whole everything. And I was not happy, whatsoever. And I could not, okay, good. I could not figure out, like, I didn't know what happiness was. And quite honestly, at this point, I feel I even forgot what it felt like to be in that space of happiness. So we have this new house, and I'm like using anything and everything. I was doctor shopping, which is going around to different doctors, carting my kids to these different doctors, many doctor's appointments. I carting my kids around to different doctor appointments. And if one would reject me, I would go to a different doctor. And if, the other one would reject, and I had to make sure, it would be like a day. It was just, I can't, looking back, it's honestly very difficult for me to even think that that was me. And to be, and I thought it was okay because I wasn't, I wasn't under the influence of bringing my kids to these doctor's appointments. I was just carting them all over so I could get prescriptions. And, and things, I mean, there was a time even when like I couldn't get anything from the doctor. So I started to just buy all this over the counter stuff. And I got deathly sick on that as well. So like I share all of these instances because again, I want to touch base on like what you see today and how I present myself. I have been to some of the shittiest things. So I'm not sharing this to be like, oh, this is my gore story, or this is like, let me share the mess, because there is a message within all of the destructive behaviors. And it's also like I'm sharing with you all of these behaviors and these behaviors and judgmental things that I did, and also very sick actions to allow you in on how like I also deconditioned myself, so through this whole process of completely, I thought I had a bottom. I thought I had a bottom when I was like on methadone and Oxycontin, like, and I thought getting clean from that, like going to the Beacon House, the women's treatment facility, here, I thought that was a bottom. There's a whole nother bottom when you have kids involved. So living in this house, being on drugs, trying to get drugs, trying to hide it from my fiance, trying to hide it from my kids, trying to be functional, trying to go to work, lying to people in the rooms of recovery. I also was seeing a psychiatrist and also a therapist, and I believe in AODA counselor. Like all these things all these people I was accountable to, who I had this mask, and it was like such a deep hole. I started severely like cutting myself again. I started to, in ways, there I felt no hope, because I was like, if this happens, if I get caught, like I'm going to lose everything. And I don't know, like me being a functioning parent without drugs, like in a good parent or a loving parent, seemed almost like it not within the reach of me at that time. I, I also actually, and this is how fearful I was of being caught and how deep I was in my addiction. In my head at that time was like I was overdosing on speed and some bronchial stuff, and I for sure I knew it. I was like, I'm not calling 911. If I die, this is how I'm going to die. I'm not calling 911 because I don't want people to find out that and if it happens, it happens. Super, like, that's really sad. That's really, really sad thinking. And to be in such a place of fear, to be in such a place of hopelessness and despair and loneliness. And, like I think of that Elaine, and I think of my heart hurts. Like, it's incredibly sad to me. It's incredibly sad that I didn't see a way out, and I didn't feel worth it. I did not feel I did not feel worthy of anything at that time. So eventually my fiance, the kid's father, like, was like, "You're out of here. I'm kicking you out of the house." Like, he had been clean for a couple years. And so he kicked me out of the house, and basically I was less than happy about it. Okay. So since he kicked me out of the house, I mean, basically I was like, well, we're not together anymore. And I continued on to start dating other people. And um, he, we had this cycle going. So we were not together, but we had this cycle going of, oh, it was really toxic, like seriously, very, very abusive for in many ways, and very toxic, where it's tough for me to talk about, because, and I want to preface all of this by saying that, like, my kid's dad today is like one of my best friends. And while the lessons that I had learned from that relationship were some of the most absolute difficult lessons ever, um, like, I gained my strength. Like, this is where I stepped into my power. Through this relationship, I had been able to pick myself up off the ground many, 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 many times. and really, I like, it demanded that I bring this certain self to the forefront in order to not go back to that. Like, it demanded that I gain strength from within to not go back to that relationship. And so for years, we had been sleeping with each other, and like, going, like, he would stalk my house and I would drive by his house and stalk that. And then if he had people over, and like, we would, I mean, it was really ugly. It was really ugly. And I would also, I felt like he would make things so difficult for me, like, in the most emotionally abusive way and controlling way. Like, if I didn't sleep with him, that it would be difficult for me and the kids. So, like, at this time I had gotten my own place with me and the kids, and it was really difficult for me to make ends meet financially. And because of how things were in the court system, like, child support wasn't a thing, because, well, while he was going to school and I was working, like, we still were so enmeshed. Like, we saw each other every day because of how our schedule was. It was really quite terrible. There was a time when I tried to get a restraining order on him. I called the cops on him before, I think twice. And it was things that it took many threats before I started to take action, like calling the cops. And it took a lot of breakdowns before I learned that, like, that's a thing. And, you know, so he had control over the finances still, even though I wasn't living with him. And so for me to sleep with him made things easier for me to get bills paid. And I felt like a prostitute. I felt used, and yet it was very difficult for me to break the cycle. I had a boyfriend, and I cheated on him a couple times. And I mean, this was all super, I was able to justify everything in my mind. I was able to justify everything in my mind. Um, and looking back, the one thing that I also feel I never took care of was in 12. In life, they often say being single, dating yourself, falling in love with yourself allows you to know how to love other people, right? Like that never caught on to me. That was never a thing. And especially in the rooms of like 12-step programs and stuff, and with substances, they strongly suggest that you don't get into relationships for the first year of your sobriety because you're so vulnerable to external influences. It's difficult to discern when you're going from one external addictive behavior to another, like what is your truth, basically. And so that was like something that I never took to heart. That was something that I was always like, yeah, I'll do all the suggestions and I'll do all the things, but I won't be single. Like I can't be single, or like, well, people always come to me, or it was like one thing after the next. Like being single to me, even though I said like I wasn't afraid of it and like I could totally be single, like I like being alone. Like I think to myself, when was I actually alone? Like I never was alone. I never was single. I never had that time to myself. Like I don't even know how to justify that, to be honest, but I did. And that's okay because because at some point I was like, oh, I I see now. I think there was some time where I was probably talking to like 5 different guys at the same time, and there was like I couldn't. It's like drugs and alcohol. Like it works for a little bit and then it doesn't. Same thing with attention for me from guys. Some people, whatever that is for them, um, it's just whatever that is to distract yourself from the inner void. Because I couldn't stand to be alone. I could not stand to be with my thoughts. Like I couldn't, and I wasn't even aware of how much I couldn't stand it until those things didn't work anymore. Um, I went through, I was like done doing hair at this point. Oh, no, I couldn't. I started drinking. I was a part of this network marketing, direct sales, however you put it. And I fell in love with that culture. I fell in love with the lifestyle. I made really good friends with the people. And in that area, I started sneaking drinking and I started drinking more. And then I lost interest in work. Oh, that's not funny. But it is because I hadn't drank in like 13 years, and I just started drinking. Everything else had fallen to the wayside. I was like talking to so many people and to so many guys, and I started drinking and lying about it to everybody. Again, I mean, it was the thing where like I you think you would be totally honest about it, and then you're just not, because you kind of want to continue what you're doing, or you don't actually know how to fess up about it. And that's like with any lie, right? So I have really learned that, oh my gosh, and once I have uncovered all of these things that I have told myself, like, and unbecame everything, there's like layers upon layers upon layers. Like, because if this isn't true, then what about this? But if that's not true, like I have built my whole life on believing this about myself, like it just unbecomes everything. And so when I say like that I had a dark night of the soul, that's what it means. Like every foundational belief that I had ever had was tipped upside down. And that's later on. So I started drinking because I was more involved in the lifestyle of this direct sales company. Within that direct sales company, I was seriously inspired by my mentor and by actually quite a few mentors, but especially my one mentor who he went from like homelessness and living on a park bench um, to like living this beautiful lifestyle where he's able to travel around and have these powerful speeches. And like, and honestly, he is a big reason why I, he's a big reason why I love sharing about my process, because like I just remember being in awe of his story and everything, and he was a beautiful soul. Well, I'm crying because he died a couple years ago, and I for I I believe it was addiction related, substance abuse related. So anyways, yeah, super sad. And that, I mean, that's the exact reason why I was so drawn to him, because and why he inspired me so much is because he went through all of those struggles. He shared all of those struggles with me. I mean, he was so fucking real, and I was like, I can do that. Like, I can do that, and I will do that. And it just, not in the same way, because he was doing it on a big stage, huge stage, and I, well, we'll see how all of this comes about, but moving forward, um, so I was drinking a lot and couldn't hide it anymore, and the kid's father was taking the kids out of the state for the summer. Nope, I'm sorry, a month, on a long road trip for a month. And I knew at that time I could either get help, I could get clean. I could get clean and get my shit together and not have to worry about that when they get back, or I was going to just go. I mean, I knew that was an option, but I knew I wasn't going to do that because I was already deep in it. Like I was already like shaking because I wasn't drinking. So they left. They left for their month long vacation, and I legit was drunk from like the whole month long. The whole month long. I don't know how I didn't die. I was trying to die. I was trying to die. I did not care about anything because I knew that there that I he would file for full custody of the kids, because that was something he had called social services on me a few times and kept a whole binder of all of the things that I had done. He was building a case up against me, which at that time I was like, that son of a bitch, blah, blah, blah. And social services had dismissed our case a couple times, because I had been able to get like a year here and a year there. And, and then like I'd go off the deep end for maybe a week. So it was like not severe, which is just, it was just this crazy, I'm sorry, I don't like to use that word. It was just this merry-go-round, and it's all later on, I see it has, because I never went to the core of any of it, of nothing. And it took me to the, one of the, the rock bottoms. Like there's never the biggest rock bottom is death. I mean, at least at one time I thought I believed that. But at this point in my journey, it was like, no, death would have been a much better thing than the fucking way I was living. Like death is a gift. At that point in time in my life, there was just, yeah, no, I was like, this is worse than death. Like, I would pray for anything. Like, for that month straight of drinking all the time, I didn't care where I went. I went everywhere drunk, walking, driving, biking, with people I didn't know, with people I thought I knew. I went around to bars, just flirting with people, meeting new people, meeting strangers, not not caring, not caring. And so it's a little bit, if this is a sensitive subject of rape coming up. So if you can tune out now if you would like. There's a good ending, but rape comes into my story. So in that month of me not caring about anything, I had found myself at a like 4th of July party, and um, I remember getting to this person's house, and then I don't know who this person is, and for a while I thought I deserved it, which I could cry about. Honestly, for a while I thought I deserved this because I was like, I was drinking, I was being so provocative, and I was being so like just going around and being flirty and wasted, um and it took me a long time to understand that's nobody deserves that. So this 4th of July party, I remember getting to this guy's house. I don't know who he was. I remember trying to get away from this guy, and then I remember him putting me in the shower, and then I remember getting thrown in my door home. I called my mom, and I had just started bawling like I was just raped. Like yeah, I was a mess. Like that was brutal. That was really a brutal thing. And and again, something that I had also experienced to a different degree before, but because I was knew the person, or because I was under the influence of drugs, like I didn't totally consider it to be rape. And to be honest, it was like, so I was on drugs, but yet had no idea what was going on. So I wasn't able to actually comprehend. So this time though, like I remember like really being, I mean, it was very physical. So because of the brutality of it, like I was considered it rape. And then it had also allowed me to look at other instances that this had happened before, that I just never considered it, because in our society, this, like sexual assault, rape, molestation is so black and white, and people think that it will happen a certain way, and it just doesn't happen the way that people think it should happen. And it happens way more than people actually talk about. And it happens, um, it continues to happen way more because people don't talk about it. And so this is me being completely raw and very open about it, because this isn't like, I am not a freak because I got raped, and I am not deserving of that because I was under the influence of drugs or any of that or anybody, or because I dressed a certain way or acted a certain way or didn't do this or didn't do that. Like, no, nobody deserves any type of abuse or like people overstepping their boundaries in any way. Like, there's just nobody deserves that. Period. Just period. So, for the next day, and quite honestly, this next, I don't even know if it was days or a week or what, but I had two friends that came over to have an intervention, and I think I was still in the same clothes that I was raped in, and still had everything. I mean, I was passed out on the ground. So, I mean, immediately they knew. They came to do an intervention, which immediately became like a medical intervention, and we wound up calling this new inpatient residential treatment facility, Mahala Hope, in Eden, Wisconsin, and this became. I knew the director and I knew the administrative assistant, and I mean I knew them from the very beginning days of, so like I had known them for like 14 years. And because I had a new trauma, and because I was currently super under the influence, I was accepted to go in. I was the first person in the county to get funded for that. I got a grant to be able to go there. I also was client number 10. And what was so different about this place? Oh, I'm going to get super. What was so different about this place? Because where every other residential treatment facility focused on like addiction or substance use, Mahalas, which means women, focus on trauma and the core reason of why we started using in the first place. And it was very, gotta make sure my microphone's still on. It's very holistic. It introduced me to yoga, to breath work, to nature, horses. They do equine therapy there. And I mean, that in itself was so healing. And oh, I well, I loved it so much that after being clean, from drugs and alcohol for 2 years, I became the house manager there and was able to be there to support the women and show them that it's possible. And that you can come from this place of ultimate despair, and you can come from like all this trauma and lifetime of abuse, and you can have happiness and joy. That oh my gosh, I'm just so grateful, because the amount what I was given through that program, it opened me up to everything. It opened me up to the life that I have today. And I and how I can pay them back, and is by, well, continuing to be here and spread my light and my love. So what was different about that treatment was, and about that whole programming and everything, well, besides it being holistic and spiritual, like I was a spiritual person before, but like tapping into that area, I was a whole like another, it opened up this whole other thing like for me. In we had this so part of our programming there was we would have a yoga teacher come like twice a week, and a fitness instructor come twice a week. And I mean, the facility there is phenomenal. It's really state of the art, and it's phenomenal. We'll just leave it state of the art. Whatever, it doesn't matter my words. So we really had some amazing people that came in from the outside, you know, that taught us all these amazing things. And I really the yoga, especially the breath work, there was something that happened to me through the breath work where it like activated some sense. And I mean, I remember just feeling super, well, no, it was actually really terrible, but I couldn't cry for the longest time. I couldn't cry. And through this one yoga session, it just like all came out. And I was so grateful. And I continued to do yoga for a while. And again, opening me up to other ways of spirituality and other revenues. Like that opened me up to, like yoga opened me up to looking into Buddhist monks. So I started to read Pema Chodron. Pema Chodron really opened me up to other ways. Then I started to read Gary Zukov and the Seed of the Soul and the Heart of the Soul. And I mean, like it would just set me on this journey. And after Mahala's, you know, Mahala's Hope had brought me to this space of being able to look at that time, sex and love addiction. So, because it's not actually about sex, it's not actually about this. And people think that sex addiction is like a total fake and or fraud or not real. And I feel because most people have this because when I started to see my therapist in Milwaukee, so this like an hour away, I went there once a week for a year straight, and this guy fucking saved my life. And he gifted me he like I didn't have the insurance, but yet, oof, he had faith in me, and he didn't charge me for services, and so. Upon looking at the sex and love addiction, which really is just about genuine connection, everybody, again, seeks through external behavior or external circumstances to feel connection, to feel intimacy, and they don't know how to connect with themselves because they're so disconnected from the internal world. They're so disconnected from their heart and nourishing themselves and nurturing themselves that their spirit just goes for it, not their spirit, but their ego goes for every which way. And really, this all stems back from like even before when I could even make choices in my life of how to be nurtured. Like this comes all the way back to like before even being sexually molested at 5. So and then reading all of this again, Patrick Carnes is coming up. And Kelly McDaniel is also another. They get into mother wounds in there, and they look at how sex and love addiction is very similar, if to heroin. And that just still blows me away. Obviously, I think I brought it up in every chapter. So getting through to this, and seeing how like, oh my gosh, this is before I was even like able to, and starting to have compassion for myself and starting to learn that like, oh, I just wanted connection, like through all of these fucked up and dysfunctional relationships, and manipulating guys with my body and using my body to get what I want. This is all just a means of me trying to learn how to get my needs met of connection. Every time I felt a void and going externally for that, it would make that void bigger. Every time I would go into this useless relationship that had no actual intimacy, it just continued to make that hole bigger every time. And then there becomes such a time when it's just like utter despair. And I feel that society, this is where we're at, using our bodies for money. Sex sells, bodies sell, like getting money to use your body as, is that empowering? Is that, or like if, and I want to touch base on, like, if you did not have your body, what value are you bringing to yourself? How do you find yourself valuable? How do you find yourself worthy without your body? Without your body. That goes, that even goes for exercise too, right? Because we think that we are more worthy and more valuable if we're in shape, if we're fit, if we're, not overweight, or if we are eating better foods, or if we're doing this better, or if we're doing that better. And it's like, just from the simple fact that thinking that you're anything other but perfect is off center. So meaning that you are worthy just because you're without a body. You are without a body. Your soul, your essence, your divine spirit is you. That is you. We have identified with the skin, with the externalness, with what activates us on a physical level. We have become so disconnected from what is without a body. I like it. And we don't know what that is. Like, that's scary to think about, or even can't even think about it. So I had really dove deep, and I had committed to myself that I was going to stay out of relationships. So I did, and then I didn't. I think for the first year, I had maybe like one relationship, and I was like, this just isn't, I don't feel good about it. I'm just going to focus on myself. And I really dove into this. Actually, I started the podcast, which at that time was Paradoxal Powers, and wanted to do a similar thing, where I interviewed people and we talked about the strengths of being vulnerable and the strength of opening up and the strength that you find when you allow yourself to surrender. And I started that, and I started writing, and I maybe was into it for maybe like 3 months. And all of a sudden, this one guy on Facebook, which I, not interested. And then he started to say things that were like super synchronistic. He's from St. Louis, and he's like, "Oh, I'm from Fond du Lac," and I'm like, interesting. And he was like, "Oh, I used to live on that street," and I was like, I live 2 houses away from where you grew up." And then we started talking, and the synchronicities were just like I could not deny that there was something there. And not to mention, like, I had been seeing 111, 1111, 222, 111, 111, and numbers. I've always been a numbers person, but the amount of times I was seeing it, I was like, there has to be something with this. And then this guy comes into my life, and it's funny because he drove all the way from St. Louis just to take me out to dinner. And my thing was, if I don't meet somebody that, like, I will date somebody if they sweep me completely off my feet. Like, other than that, it's not worth my time. So yeah, he literally drove all the way to take me out to dinner. And no, we didn't have sex. We did not. We kissed. And and I'm saying this because this relationship was a monumental and pivotal relationship for me. If you have heard of twin flames, yes, I believe I am on that journey. However, it is completely different than what I ever thought it would be from the very beginning. That kiss activated me. I mean, it was an instant like Kundalini activation. And if you are not aware, you can look into that. So it right away, almost instantly, everything in my life started to change. Within 2 weeks, we're like, yeah, we're going to combine. We're going to start integrating our family together. Like, I went down there every other week for like 5 days. And I started to train to become a recovery coach and a peer support specialist. I did all this like trainings to not do hair anymore. And so I could work around and travel and be there and start integrating our family. So basically it was like, yeah, we're committed, like we're married and blah, blah, blah. 6 to 7 months into it, it all of a sudden was like, I'm not, to me, he was like, I'm not in love with you and I'm not attracted to you. So, I mean, I feel like I fought that for a while and then that had to end. And then I went into the dark night of the soul. And this is where everything for me covered, it all uncovered. I blossomed. This is where I was planted. This is where all of these spiritual abilities came to about, because he blocked me on everything, all the kids, like everything. Like, so we were so integrated, and then it was like, boom, nothing. And I was completely traumatized by that and obsessively researched everything about connections and soulmates and connections and soulmates. And that is literally all I did. So everything, like, then I found this twin flame thing, like, and back then, 2018, I think, the beginning of 2019, there really wasn't much on it. And so, I got obsessed with studying tarot readings, oracle readings, astrology. Those were my first three things. And then from that went into gene keys. That was a whole nother thing. Then from that was, well, human design was later on, but really it was like learning, well, so many synchronicities. I seriously, if I talked about it to anybody, the first year I was like just super silent about it, because everything that was happening in the universe, I was like, if I tell people this, I'm going to be admitted into the psych ward. Like, no doubt, because it was like, but the numbers, the birds. So birds became like this whole thing. I believe, just like off the top of my head, there was like one day I ran a lot, and so I would go on like 3 mile runs. There was one run where I seriously saw like 13 cardinals and like 7 blue jays, or like 5 bald eagles. I mean, I could not make this shit up. And I started talking to angels. I started writing, like doing automatic writing. I started like just looking into what all of the elements mean and doing all of these like rituals. And I started doing visualization of healing. I mean, all these things that I did because I was like, I'm going to get back together with him. I'm going to get back together with him. What is really fascinating is I could see that when I would heal, he would mirror the same thing. And I would set out these intentions. And I mean, boom, the next day, something would happen with him. I mean, so for a while, he was there as a marker to show me like, oh, I literally, like, I am healing things. I am. And eventually that marker, like, I just started to be like, I'm loving all of this. Like, I started heart activation maybe 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. I started reading cards. Like I said, I got this job at Mahala's as a house manager, and being able to work with the women. I started training recovery coaches. I started I started learning like Reiki and theta healing, and I started doing all these things, and I started working with other women and doing these things, and my intuitive gifts and abilities like exploded, and they continue to explode. I don't even know the amount of energy that comes through is beautiful. And so through this twin flame activation, because I don't how I see this, right? And a lot of people are like, I see a lot of trauma bonding through twin flames, honestly, because people are so stuck in the fact that they want that fairy tale and that person. And to me, for me, and I'm so thankful that I am where I am, like so it did activate me in a whole way that at that time, that's just how it entered my life. Um, it brought me to see myself. I was obsessed about him and getting back with him in that relationship. And I thought we were going to like rule the world or change the world with our grand light and everything like that. And and I mean, I'm not dead yet, so who knows, but whatever. He's doing his own thing. I talk intermittently with him, and I'm not like in the least bit worried about any relationship right now. Like this right here is like where I find my true love and passion and just love, 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 love for life and me and humanity and being there for others. And it's where I found a lot of my gifts. The more that I have uncovered my gifts, and the more that I have uncovered healing others, or not even, because I don't heal others, I guide them to healing their remembrance, because that's what happened for me. Is I remembered who I was. I remembered me. I remembered that I am a powerful, sovereign, divine feminine. And that is what, in the twin flame or any journey is about, reconnecting with source through any drug addiction. When you that if you were to ask people what it's like being high, it's like you're connected to heaven, or you're euphoric or in bliss, or the illusion of, because you're not actually, it's like really messes with your brain and your chemicals. So it's that illusion of that. So we're all just yearning to have that reconnection to source. Well, actually not reconnection, because we're never disconnected. It's only in our belief that we think we're disconnected. So it's the remembrance that we are source, that we're always connected, that it's only been within our perception that we have become disconnected. And it is only within our perception that we need anything externally. And so I feel that guiding people back to this remembrance of their sovereignty and their light and their power and authentic power and their truth, and finding their purpose in their pain and creating a passion from that, is you're able to fall in love with your life. You're able to fall in love with all of the mess, and recognize that it was always just your perception, that you weren't actually there. And that then when you find that, you don't settle for anything other than that. So on that journey of twin flames, after I was able to heal the trauma bond, after I went through and to all of these psychics, healers, mediums, all these people. And these are all things that I can do. These are all things that you can do. It's just a matter of belief. It is within the biology of belief. And if you haven't read that book, or, there's a lot of amazing things on the biology of belief with Bruce Lipton. So check that out, because that's basically, what the spiritual awakening is about, is breaking down all these barriers to your believing into seeing that it's all within you, and creating that belief within you gives you the strength to see that you are all you need. You don't actually need any external healers. You don't need any external anything. But however, they help to shift your awareness and shift your sights internally, so you can believe that, and the power of your belief is what actually helps shift that for you. um, and so that's where I'm at today, basically. And this is all still unfolding for me, because this is new. And how can I get my message out there, and how can I bring the purity of heart that I have out in the world, and how can I bring that forward and be of service? And I at one point remember, like, dedicating myself to love and to service only if my twin flame was there, and which is a total thing. No, my love, this love, all of it, he or you are all a divine reflection for me. Everybody is that reflection of my heart. Everybody is that reflection for me, and I am that for you. So I don't actually need any person. Each new person that I meet does activate a certain level of frequency within me, and I to them. So it's all just within a perception shift. And the the greatest, most grandest rebellious act we can do right now is honing in on our authentic gifts and our authentic power, and honing in on what makes us so unique, and really harnessing that and stepping into your light, being that unique, genuine, authentic person, and not needing to go to the external anything, and bringing all of that light and all of that love within to be able to go without. So, and that, my friends, oh, thank you. That is such a blessing to be able to get out there for all of you to hear. And I just want to say thank you for being with me on this journey, and however it continue to unfold, and however this unfolds with you. And until we meet again, I send so much love.